it's the melting pot of Australia. It's still a little bit segregated, like in areas of like culture, and I think we could integrate it even more.
The culture of tall poppy syndrome that Australia has.
It's hard to always believe in yourself, especially when sometimes you try things out, they don't really go as planned.
Content creator, what are you gonna get? What kind of job is that?
Do better in Australia.
They know who the they are.
Melbourne is Australia's true cultural capital. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I do agree. It is 100%, because with everything in the cultures, different cultures, backgrounds, and inclusivity, it's all in Melbourne. So, yeah, I don't know. What am I to say? Can you repeat the question again? Absolutely.
Melbourne is Australia's true cultural capital.
Yes.
I agree, because I believe that Sydney is like the city that we tend to be put against, and I don't think that there's any competition there. Sydney, the culture that tends to be described, and every single time I've went, it feels very soulless, very corporate, very monotone, like people are really always needing to conform to like aesthetic standards. It's about status. What I feel like Melbourne, the overall vibe is just, it's very accepting to like diversity, and very embraces people's differences, opposing to like forcing everyone to feel like they have to conform to any idea or cultures. So yeah. Who next?
I do think that Melbourne is Australia's cultural capital because of, from my experience living here, I really feel like Melbourne is like a mini New York of Australia. It is basically, it's the melting pot of Australia. There's cultures, people from all walks of life. And I think with the multiculturalism comes a huge variety of creative expression. And I feel like you can find a piece of what you need and what you want and what you're looking for in Melbourne. Yeah.
I'll just add on to that in regards to, I believe that Sydney and Melbourne are both like New York. I believe that they're like the siblings of New York. I feel like Melbourne inherited the creative output and diversity and like crackhead energy of New York, opposed to like Sydney is like the monotone, like corporate Wall Street vibe. And they're just like two siblings of the same parent that went in completely different directions.
I agree with everything that everyone has said. I do think Melbourne culturally is so expressive and amazing. The only reason I'm here and not all the way, because I am all the way over there, but I do think that still in Melbourne there, it's great with the expressionism. You can always find a spot, but still it's still a little bit segregated, like in areas of like culture, and I think we could integrate it even more with the possibility of that, and you can definitely see that outside from the Melbourne Central, if that makes sense. So could be even more involved, is my opinion.
I got to add to that and just say, I guess it's just comparing it to the rest of the cities or, states in Australia. I really do think that Melbourne is definitely a little bit more ahead of the game, a little bit more mature, on the top. A bit more evolved. This is within the Australian context, that is, you know what I mean? A bit more evolved across, I suppose, cultural integration. Of course, it can always do better. We can always do better in Australia. We can always do better in Australia. But yeah, but yeah, I do think that if we're answering that particular question, Melbourne,
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
No question.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome is common among creatives across Australia. 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to move over here because I very strongly agree. I think creatives all over the globe feel that way, not just Australia, just creatives full stop. I think it's such a competitive field and you can't help but feel so much pressure on yourself and also like watching others succeed. It's hard to always, feel happy for others. It's a matter of like, damn, I wish I was there. I wish I was doing that. I wish I'd thought of that first. It's hard to always believe in yourself, especially when sometimes you try things out, they don't really go as planned. It's a lot of trial and error, and you have to have a lot of trust in yourself to continuously do that over and over and over, and you have to be so resilient. And sometimes imposter syndrome does get the best of you. When you try again and again and again, it gets really exhausting. Sometimes it's too much, but it's about getting back up, being resilient. That's why we're all here, I think. We're resilient people. But it's tough.
So the reason I'm here and not all the way over is because I think there is a minority of people that have done really well at not succumbing to that, but at the same time, I think a lot of Australian creatives do feel imposter syndrome. I think it relates to the culture of tall poppy syndrome that Australia has, and this notion of us not being proud of who we are, not putting ourselves out there, not putting our creativity out there, and sort of keeping more to ourselves. And then I also think it has to do with population and infrastructure that is in creativity, especially because our creative niches tend to be a lot smaller with smaller opportunities. So I think that can also play into someone feeling like their worth is not really appreciated here, and maybe it's not even worth them putting themselves out there. So that's my sort of 360 on what contributes to imposter syndrome here.
Is it cool if I stand here? So basically, I totally agree with everything. I think in Oz, as an Oz creative, we tend to kind of gravitate or attach to something that it makes us feel like there's no space here. Or if there is a space, it's like super, like they're so far behind. And then for me personally, it's like, I feel like I've been pushing something that I strongly believe in, that sometimes I do feel like imposter syndrome, that I'm like, oh, am I doing the wrong thing? Or I start to doubt that. So I think it's just a matter of just truly believing and then like really understanding what you want to put out and who you are as a person and that, yeah.
Yeah, I do 100% agree, and I'm going to be here. Basically because I don't think it's actually only Melbourne. I think it's the whole Australia. When it comes to the creative stuff, it's like we always like the last to come in something. Like, for example, content creation. If everyone here know, like in USA or like Canada, all other places, like the pay is really good, like everywhere. Like people get paid on TikTok, people get paid on YouTube, Instagram. But Australia, a lot of those don't really exist. Like otherwise they come later. YouTube is there, but when it comes to like other things like TikTok, all other countries are getting paid, but Australia is always the last one to come in. I know they're going to come maybe in 2050 to get paid. So who knows? So I feel like that thing is not only because of the creatives. The reason like a lot of creatives like really hang back at what they want to do is because sometimes they feel like maybe like this is not the right thing because not a lot of people are doing it because they're not getting enough support. So like nobody want to start, because I'm very sure like even all these people outside here, if like the creative actually gets support in Australia, a lot of people will do it. Like how they do in America. It's like a job. But here, you say you're content creator, like, yeah. A content creator is like, yeah. Content creator, what are you going to get? What kind of job is that? So.
Hi. So what I was going to comment on this is I'm in the middle because I believe that there is a very valid kind of shared reality and experience for a lot of creatives where they do feel that way. But I also feel like a lot of the things that are being discussed kind of stem from like systematic issues, opposed from people knowing who they are within their own creativity, their own crafts. I feel like a lot of creatives that I know, they know, are we allowed to swear? Oh no? They know who the fuck they are. They know that they're really good. They know what they're passionate about, and they're dedicated to that part of themselves. It's just more so the commercialization of art and people trying to make money off of their own craft and the complexity around that and just being a creative in the world. The systems in Australia, the infrastructure isn't really that set up in comparison to other systems like America, et cetera, et cetera. But I believe that there are a lot of, I feel like everyone here knows that, well, I can't talk about your own experience, but you guys know, like, you do what the fuck you do, and you feel passionate about what you do, and though those experiences can maybe take something away from you in terms of questioning your purpose or your, how would I say, like your mastery of your craft, et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of people know like what their art inherently means to them. So I wouldn't necessarily say I fully agree that the majority, I'm not sure if it's like the majority or like many or whatever, like I would say everyone has a, what was it? What did they call it? Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, but more so that the world is just not set up in a way that favors the creative experience and supports people to be able to dedicate so much of themselves to what they want to do opposed to what they have to do. And there's a lot of complexity within that because we gotta eat. At the end of the day, we gotta eat, and we want to live these full, meaningful lives filled with passion, filled with joy, and it's just not as viable. So that lack of viability and lack of access is what creates the kind of disturbance and mutually shared blah blah. Plus, I'm not Australian, so I didn't grow up here, but I'm British. I think also I have seen that experience in a lot of cultures where people tend to have to downplay themselves and how that can kind of like feed into people's like I don't want to say egos. I don't know if egos is the right word, but the word like self-perception, how like people are allowed to take space. Maybe that can be an aspect, like when you're talking about the tall poppy syndrome, but guys take space. So that's why I'm in the middle.
Melbourne's nightlife is crucial to the creative community. 3, 2, 1.
I'm holding the mic. I don't even know why I put my hand up. I think that nightlife, for me, okay, I'm gonna talk from my personal experience. I think that the nightlife is super important because as a dancer, as a movement artist, it provides another outlet, another space beyond creating for a job or teaching class or choreographing for something. I think that the nightlife provides a space for you to fully express who you, like the way you want to express without the pressures of going back to that previous question, which you were saying about how the structures don't support people naturally wanting to be leaning into their creative space. And I think that, yeah, the nightlife allows that. I'm not someone who drinks or takes drugs or anything like that. I really do think for me, music and a space like that to be able to interact with other people and experience them with the language of movement and music without having to communicate in the language of actually speaking, I think that's super, super important for me. And I think that if there isn't a nightlife or a space like that, that really, really, really makes it, it's a struggle for me, really, yeah.
So I think not all creative mediums rely on nightlife, which is why I haven't gone all the way over, but there are many that do. Having said that, I think the Melbourne nightlife isn't necessarily geared in the right direction to support local creatives, and I'd like to see a change in that. I'm going to leave it there, and I want to hear what Smiles says.
So I work in the nightlife, like that's me all the time. The reason why I'm kind of like here, I think is like agree, but not so strongly, is purely because of the Melbourne nightlife in particular. Super creative. I think it's like you're gonna find the night, the parties, the music, maybe even the people that you really aspire to be around. However, because of being a monster for so long, I think there's a lot of toxicity, which I don't think really. So I think this is kind of why I just kind of agree, because I feel like there's a lot of negative things that come with the nightlife. That's why a lot of us creatives tend to create our own spaces, insert all these brand new events that have come up. Because if you think of a nightclub, you start thinking negative things. There's a lot of negative stuff that happen. And I try my very best for all the spaces that I provide and events that I put on, that's not a thing. So yeah, that's kind of why I agree. I think the Melbourne creative nightlife is super amazing. You're gonna find the music, you're gonna dance, you're gonna meet people that are super cool and dress super fresh. But I think ultimately, there's the reason why a lot of us creatives tend to step away is because nightclubs are kind of negative spaces, to be honest.
So I think the nightlife is definitely very important for certain aspects of the creative field. For me personally, as a content creator, and especially a Twitch streamer, I kind of rely on people not going out. I think my target audience is people who are staying home on a Friday night, you know? So although like for the dancers, for the entertainers, for the DJs out there, like the nightlife is where it's at, for me, I'm targeting a whole different audience. So hence why I'm more on the disagree side, but not fully disagree, because there is a need for Melbourne nightlife, and it's amazing what we do have here.
Yeah. I will say something. I do agree that the nightlife is good and cultivates. The reason I'm like over here a little bit more is because it hasn't cultivated my creative energy. When it comes to dance, if I can dance with my girls, that's amazing, but I don't drink and I also don't do drugs, and so it's kind of like, if you are in those spaces, I find when I am most expressive and held is when I can have conversations, and that's hard in the nightlife. And I don't show up in a spot to be like, look at me and look what I can do. I show up because I want to be around those people and I want to have those conversations, and I feel that it's really important to have nightlife, but also we are just creating our own spaces for that. It's not that the nightclubs are withholding that, because it's more towards partying or dating, and when you're creative, you're obviously locked into what you want to do and express, not just, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what they were saying. I was gonna say, it really depends on what creative field like you're trying to, like, obviously as a DJ, duh. that's where you're gonna be at. But I think in another way, very honestly, a lot of people that I have met has just been through meeting them organically, because we haven't got those spaces. I think that a lot of people are trying to create those spaces. Like even with this, like people are really trying to create something within Melbourne, and it's such an inspiring, like orange juicing energy that you kind of feel living in the city. But like nightlife is not so crucial to every creative career, because like the creative field is just too expansive. Like how many people who are here who do completely different things, and we're all creatives. But it also is just like, yeah, I've met a lot of people organically, and then I've collaborated with them as a result. I wouldn't say through nightlife. I'm an ambivert. I don't really like going clubbing a lot, every once in a while. But, you know, just being out and about kind of is what I associate nightlife with. It doesn't have to just be clubbing. So just being out and about, you meet people randomly, you network organically. And for people who said they might have known me, usually I have like orange, like my look is usually like a fluorescent afro, like orange afro. So that also might contribute to why you talk to a lot of people. But I feel like, yeah, that's how it kind of is very crucial, unless your career is directly tied to that specific realm.
The line between art and activism is increasingly being blurred in not just Melbourne, but Australia's creative scene. I'll repeat it. The line between art and activism is being blurred in Australia's creative scene. 3, 2, 1.